Toast to the Morning Word crowd. God bless y'all. God bless America. Okay, Esther chapter 9, verse 18. Bear with us here, about 8 verses. But the Jews who were in Shushan, that was in Persia, assembled together on the 13th day as well as on the 14th, and on the 15th of the month they rested, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. Therefore the Jews of the villages who dwelt in the unwalled towns celebrated the 14th day of the month of Adar with gladness and feasting as a holiday, and for sending presents to one another. And Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters to all the Jews near and far who were in the provinces of King Ahasuerus, that's the guy that was over the Persian kingdom at the time, to establish among them that they should celebrate yearly the 14th and the 15th days of the month of Adar as the days on which the Jews had rest from their enemies, at the month which was turned from sorrow to joy for them, and from mourning to a holiday, that they should make them days of feasting and joy for them, and from mourning to a holiday, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, of sending presents to one another and gifts to the poor. So the Jews accepted the custom which they had begun, as Mordecai had written them, because Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had plotted against the Jews to annihilate them, and had cast the pur, or the poor, P-U-R, that is the lot, what we would call today the equivalent of the dice, who had cast pur to consume them and destroy them. But when Esther came before the king, he commanded by letter that this wicked plot which Haman had devised against the Jews should return on his own head, and that he and his sons should be hanged on the gallows. So they called these days Purim, after the name of Pur. Therefore, because of all the words of this letter which they had seen concerning this matter, and what had happened to them, the Jews established and imposed it upon themselves and their descendants, and all who would join them, that without fail they would celebrate these 2 days every year, according to the written instructions and according to the prescribed time, that these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation, every family, every province, and every city, that these days of Purim should not fail to be observed among the Jews, and that the memory of them should not perish among their descendants. Wow. Well, the irony of it all, right? Because at that time, the Jewish people were in captivity in Persia, having been taken away by the Babylonians and Babylonians overrun by the Persians. Now they're in a foreign land. This guy named Mordecai, who was a Jew, had taken in as an orphan Esther. And Esther was beautiful. And y'all know the story. I'm not going to tell the whole story, but Esther arose to become the queen of Persia. And Mordecai, being a Jew, was kind of supporting her. He had raised her, so he's supporting her. So he's got a connection. God had worked all this out in his sovereign plan. Well, there's this other guy named Haman. He gets promoted. He's got all the political connections. He gets promoted by King Ahasuerus, and he's running around flaunting his money, his favor, his family, his possessions, his power. And so when he walked by one day, Mordecai didn't bow down like everybody did. Mordecai wasn't going to bow down because he was a Jew, and he wasn't going to bow down to anyone. And so Haman got mad, and Haman made a plan that he was going to use his influence with the king to have a decree made that all the Jews were to be destroyed. Now, let me stop right here and say that anti-Semitism is not something new. It's something that's growing in our day by day, especially in our churches. It's on Fox News. One of the most popular former Fox News host and analyst and show, had his own show, was Tucker Carlson. And of course, y'all know about Candace. And And so, Candace Owens, so they're anti-Semites, meaning that they are against the Jews. I think that Tucker's anti-Semitism arises from his Episcopalian background, which are reformed in their thinking, which adhere to replacement theology. Anyway, I'm not going to debate all that, but here's what I know. All the way back to Genesis 12, when God blessed Abraham and his progeny, not only spiritually, but also physically, his descendants, the Jews, have been under persecution. We can see that in the book of the Revelation when the woman that gives birth to Jesus, which is the nation of Israel, its symbolism, the woman who gives birth to Jesus is then persecuted by the dragon from that point forward. So from the dragon Satan has tried to destroy first the first coming of Christ by destroying the Jewish people. He didn't succeed. Now he's trying to destroy and to hinder the second coming of Christ by doing what? Destroying the Jewish people. Now, mind you that the Jewish people have done a lot on their own to lead to their own persecution. They made a statement. It was representative. It was made by their leaders. It was representative of the whole nation when they were putting Christ up for crucifixion. They said, his blood be on us and upon our children. And it has for generations. Nevertheless, God has preserved them. And so the irony of this story is that in Persia, which is now modern day Iran, there was a plan to annihilate the Jews. There has been a plan in Iran to annihilate the Jews, particularly since the 1970s, when the Islamic regime, the Shiite Islamic regime of the Ayatollah Khomeini overthrew the Shah of Iran and set up the beginning of what they wanted to establish was a religious caliphate, and their plan was to annihilate the Jews. When asked in person, every day, the Ayatollah Khomeini, one time they asked in person, what's the first thing that you think of every day when you wake up as the leader of Iran? He said, the annihilation of the Jews. So here we have a type of Ayatollah Khomeini. Haman, he made a plan that he was going to conspire, manipulate the king, and he did. Issued a decree that all the Jews were to be brought together in one day and killed, every man, woman, and child. They were going to hang them. Mordecai gets word of it. He appeals to Esther. Esther calls for a fast. For 3 days, she gets herself pulled together. She goes before the king. The king accepts her, says, what do you want to do? She said, I want to invite Haman to a feast. His plot is discovered. Mordecai is promoted. Haman is hanged on his own gallows. And the person who decided to destroy the Jews and the means by which he had decided to destroy the Jews became his own execution. He suffered on the very gallows. He died on the very gallows that he had conceived in his mind to kill all the Jews with. Let me just tell you again, you know where I stand, because I think it's Bible from the beginning to the end. And that is this. You don't have to like the Jews, but you better respect them. You don't have to like the Jews, but you better not try to take their land. I didn't say that every Jew is right, that all the things that the Jews do are infallible and without fault. They are secular. They are anti-Jesus right now. And they have a lot of secular, but they are brilliant people. From them have come so many advancements in our culture, to which some have been brought to light in the last 2 or 3 years since October the 7th, 2023, when Hamas invaded Israel. They have military advancements in weaponry. They just utilized just a few days ago when all this started, they utilized the first light beam, a light beam that intercepts missiles and destroys them in the air. No one on this planet has it. They have it. A light beam. It's not a bomb, it's a beam. Boom, boom, boom. And so all I try to tell people is this. You don't have to like it. Matter of fact, you don't even have to believe that God is still preserving them. But it ought to be evident. It ought to be evident. From this story, how God preserved the Jews through a Jewish woman in the highest levels of government in a pagan nation. God had set it up to have Esther in that position, as the famous words, for such a time as this. I'm just telling you that you better not mess with the Jews. And if you want to be on the winning side, you need to be an ally of the Jews. And you know all the geographical truths. A little old bitty place about the size of Rhode Island over there in the middle of the Middle East, an Arabic world full of Ishmaelites, the antagonistic brother of Isaac, and which is the Arab people, every one of them, and they hate the Jews. And even if they don't publicly announce it, if they had their ways, they would annihilate the Jews. And all over this country, we've been seeing it for several years now, for a couple of years now, in Europe, Belgium, the Netherlands, Germany, Spain, Portugal, Great Britain, of course, on and on and on, marches against the Jewish people. Now we've got these people like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and all of these voices shouting from within America, and there's everybody thinks it's some conspiracy theory that the Jews are trying to rule the world. They're not trying to rule the world. They're trying to live their life in that little country over there and mind their own business. They have never conquered a people to occupy their land other than when God gave them back their land and they had to fight to keep it. They're not trying to occupy Iran. They're just trying to disable Iran from being an existential threat to them for the foreseeable future. They're not trying to overtake Syria. They're trying to keep Syria pushed back enough that they're not an existential threat. They're not trying to take over Jordan. They're not trying to take over Lebanon. They're just trying to kill the people that are trying to kill them in those places. So the Jewish people have always been on the defensive when it comes to war, not the offensive. And so today, I just need you to understand that today, beginning yesterday at the evening time, we are currently in this holiday, Purim. The irony. The irony that the Jewish people are celebrating how God delivered them as a people from the sadistic, maniacal plans of Haman to destroy all the Jewish people, that today, in the land of Haman, they have deposed, or day before yesterday, they deposed the very leader, the Haman of the modern day Haman of Iran, the Ayatollah Khomeini. And what the Ayatollah had intended to do to Israel, Israel did to the Ayatollah. Oh, the irony. Oh, the irony. If anybody cannot see the simple, plain, forget the Bible, the simple, plain, historical, geographical, geopolitical happenings and how God has brought his people back into the land, it's never before, never in the history of humanity has a nation ever been deconstructed, its borders obliterated, its people scattered to the four corners of the earth, to reconstitute them back in the original land, give them back their borders, have their original language established. Their original language established. Never in the history has that ever happened. And you don't think that God's hand is in that? You don't have to like the politics, but you better. We would be well advised to observe and respect, at the very least, what God is doing in the nation of Israel and with the Jewish people. Let me tell you what he's doing, and I'll close with this. He is setting the table. God is setting the table for the entirety of the world to come against the Jewish people. Not just Iran, the entirety of the world. Zechariah chapter 14, if you want to go look it up. I will make Jerusalem a heavy stone and a weight, a rock of stumbling to all the nations. When I gather all the nations together against Jerusalem and against Israel, God is setting the table. And yes, in that war, Israel will be semi-defeated. Semi-defeated as the Antichrist takes his place. But it will be for a short minute. And then the King of Kings is coming back. And I promise you, when he stands, puts his feet, listen, not down in Iraq. He's not going to put his feet down in Syria. He's not going to put his feet down in Iran. The scripture says when Jesus comes back, he's going to put his feet down on the Mount of Olives and walk into the city of Jerusalem. Now, brother, you can put that in your pipe and smoke it. That is going to happen. And he's going to preserve that nation so that he can do that very thing. The Feast of Purim. God is doing amazing things if we would just open our eyes, look in our Bibles, and put two and two together. It ain't rocket science. We will see you tomorrow, good Lord willing, and the saints don't rise. Peace out.